what are some of the projects that you're doing at the moment, or have done?
This year in 2011, we planted 35,000 trees with the Loco indigenous tribe in east of us here at our headquarters. It was all along the river called the Rio Sol, and it's a continuous corridor on all the landowners that are indigenous people on one side of the river. And one of the exciting things is this year is that one of the other indigenous owners wants to reforest on the other side of the river. And it was so exciting to go see his property, because when I looked across the river, I could see all the trees we planted last year. You know, I mean, this is a story that, I don't know if you want me, I'll tell it to you quickly, okay? The Loco people, there were 6,000 or more people in their tribe until the mid-1800s. And the Nicaraguan gauchos, the rubber barons, came down into Costa Rica and massacred the whole tribe and left only 600 people to get the rubber trees. And of course they had guns and, you know, cannons, all this stuff. And the Indian people had spears and arrows, and they're very shy, they're very timid people. So they wiped out the tribe, and then after that, in the mid-1900s, the non-indigenous farmers moved over to their area and started taking their land. In other words, they had like 60,000 hectares, or almost 200,000 acres of land that they lost, and now live on just a 600 hectare area for their territory. Even though the government has decreed their territory to be the 3,000 hectares, they've never done anything to give those lands back to the people. So that was the root cause of the project for me in the beginning, was to try and retrieve or recuperate their territory by buying the lands back via donations, buying farms back from the non-indigenous owners and giving them back to the Loco tribe as a community. That's another thing, like with our foundation, a very important part for me is we only do positive action. That's all. I never do any activism. I try to do everything in a peaceful manner. In other words, rather than take the government to court and try to get those lands back for the Loco people, I think it's more productive to try and buy the properties back and give to them, because after we were able to do that with a couple of the properties, I think it will shame the government into doing it themselves.
So the local people then, in recovering their lands, I mean, they're obviously very committed to working together with your foundation on this, aren't they? And other people have supported that.
Oh yes, especially the indigenous people have turned out to be so understanding and so aware and conscious of what the whole La Reserva philosophy. They understand it, that we're not restoring forests. For instance, most people will look at a tree and they see wood. But the indigenous people look at a tree and understand that it's our symbiotic partner. It's there to provide for us and all life, right? So a lot of my work, a lot of times, is trying to change this mentality that has happened from people seeing trees as our partners on the earth to seeing it as a resource, and that's all. And so a lot of times when people do reforestation or do a lot of charity and work, they're thinking of what they're doing for other people, and what we're trying to do is encompass all life. And so everything we do, I always make sure that what we're doing is good for every single thing, not just human beings.
Do you find that the indigenous people have a natural love for the forest? How do you see that kind of thing being expressed? What kind of example does it serve, do you feel?
Well, actually, the indigenous people here, even though they live the more modern type of life, and the government's given them, like the the type of housing that most people live in here, a cement house, which they could actually, right today, they could live from the forest. They can build their home from the forest. Everything's in the forest. Although they don't have any forest left, that's their problem. But they could if they had it. They eat from the forest. They eat the nuts, the fruits. They know everything. They eat the hunting, they hunt the animals. They can make their clothing from the bark of a certain tree called the mastate tree. So actually, they see the forest as their home rather than as something separate from them. You understand that trees are our symbiotic partners in life, with humans and all life, because they're sequestering the carbon that comes from us. Even when we breathe out, that's carbon dioxide. And all the technological cars, everything that we're doing, transportation, is emitting that carbon. And they're taking that in because they need that to eat. That's their food. And then they're exhaling oxygen, which is what we need. So we have this system going with it. If only everyone knew how important they were.
Do you feel that the indigenous people would prefer to be living in the forest in their traditional ways, even having modern civilization? How do you feel they would go in the future?
I think the majority would, but I think my take would be that they would probably like to mix the two. They're all on Facebook and, you name it. So, and they love all that social connection that they have. But they also would love to live the more traditional lifestyle and be able to build their own houses, like that.
And how do you see your foundation developing now? What sort of plans do you have for the future?